Tuesday at this time, we like to get a little political. It's time for Party Scoopers. Jeff Link on the left-hand side of your screen, Craig Robinson on the right-hand side of your screen, just as we have it laid out, Jason Parkin. And so this week, what do you think we should chat about?
Well, so apparently we were just talking about Back to the Future. You know, I still can't believe that we may have a Bush-Clinton election, but we may.
Yeah, and it's all shaping up today. In fact, over in the Quad Cities, both Secretary Clinton and Jeb Bush will be campaigning in the Quad Cities. I think Clinton is going to be in Davenport maybe at noon to talk about health care and the economy. I'm not sure exactly what the Bush topic is today, but this is kind of the first time we've seen them both in the same part of the state at the same time. And, you know, it might be a preview to the general election. But
you know what happened back in '04 when this was general election? Bush and Kerry were both in the Quad Cities at the same time and during the general election, and a bunch of banks got robbed downtown because of the cops were serious. This would be a great political movie. Ben Affleck, come on, let's instead of doing your Boston crime scene movies, that would be a fantastic movie plot. But these banks were robbed because all the police,
every law enforcement.
Oh, it was crazy.
They watching everything else.
They robbed a bunch of banks. But so I don't know if that'll happen today. But Bush is in Davenport tonight to speak at the Reagan dinner for the Scott County Republican Party.
But in Muscatine beforehand, they're all
he's
sort of
doing
circling
Muscatine
the Quad
tomorrow,
Cities.
and then this is Bush's longest campaign trip in Iowa. This is the first time he's really been here multiple days and will travel across the state.
Overnight stay, huh?
Yeah, commitment. You know you're committed when you have to do overnight. You know, you got to find a hotel that you're going to hold up, overnight.
Super 8.
That's not in Des Moines.
Commitment is staying in Ottumwa. Like staying in
or Fairfield, yeah. No.
Look, I grew up in southeast Iowa, but so here's the one thing that I think is interesting about this whole Clinton-Bush visit. I mean, Clinton has been here. You know, she's overnighted in the state more than once.
In her van.
And they have, they've put a real commitment into the state. But I think what we're finally seeing is that the Bush strategy is looking a lot like the old Romney strategy. And that is they're going to pretend like they're not that interested in Iowa. They're going to tell reporters they're not that interested in Iowa, but the truth is they want to win Iowa. And the problem is, what is he in, 6th?
Yeah.
7th, 5th, somewhere. He's not even close. So he's going to really have to make a commitment and show, sort of that strategy.
This strategy works, I think, if you have New Hampshire in your back pocket, where you kind of slow play Iowa a little bit and then really, focus intensely on it. But the problem with the Bush campaign is they've had a lot of fundraising success, especially with the super PAC, but they haven't had, so they're interested in winning Iowa. I don't know how many Iowans are interested in the campaign. And you put it on an odd note with Iowa activists too when you do this slow play, because I think these campaigns forget people want to be part of something that actually is trying to win. And so you spend months and months and months communicating, kind of keeping everything at bay, and then you want to flip the switch and say, here we come. They spend so much time and effort playing the expectations game, where I think they would have been better off had he just come in and tried to win here. Communicate strength instead of constant weakness for the first 6 months of this race.
Right, it's hard to get people fired up to say, let's get 4th.
Right, exactly.
Well, maybe he's pacing himself, wanting to see what everybody's going to do up front and take each other out. And then once they start taking each other out, then he's going to go forward.
I think you've seen the mistake that these campaigns make. Look, they have. When Scott Walker got out of this race, it reset everything. And people look at Iowa completely different now. I think there was this belief that even when he wasn't high in the polls, that Scott Walker was going to get his. And so it made life very difficult for a lot of other candidates, if you're a social conservative or more mainstream candidate. Poof, he's gone overnight, shocks everybody, and then everyone's standing there looking there saying, oh shoot, like there is an opportunity for me to make a play in Iowa.
Yeah, somebody besides a neighboring
it's wide open
elected official.
And so, I think a lot of these campaigns were, caught with their pants down a little bit.
How can it be good for our country to have another Bush or another Clinton in office. I just wish we
Well, look, I mean,
You don't like the peaceful transfer of power between two families?
could. Your turn.
no, but
They had a playbook from before. Here it is.
Look, the truth is, I think a lot of Americans would take the Clinton economy back. I mean, we had a surplus.
we did, yeah.
We had a surplus. We didn't have mounting debt during the Bill Clinton administration.
But what has
we ended with
Hillary
a
Clinton
surplus.
said in this entire campaign that points to an economy like that? I mean, it's more government entitlements, more and more. I mean, more spending. I mean, I think this country
I don't
is
think you've
just
caught the gist of her message.
no,
the
but
gist
I
of
think
her
this
message
country
is to
is
raise
just
up the middle class,
hungry
which is
for new
exactly what
ideas
happened
and
in
a
the
new
90s.
direction. I'm with you, Jason. I think they look at this and say, please, like, give us a different option than these two.
I'm going to have to hold my nose again at the ballot box. I know I am.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, there's a long time between now and the nomination.
Well, it's true.
Remember, Donald Trump is still in the lead.
That's true.
And Bush is still, sort of in 4th or 5th or 6th in Iowa and in New Hampshire and in 3rd or 4th in Florida. And, he's a long way from the nomination. If anything, Clinton is in a much stronger position
absolutely.
among Democrats than Bush is among
You kind of glossed
Republicans.
over one thing here. You said he's 3rd or 4th in Florida,
Yes.
where they kind of know him.
Yeah, he's had some experience in that state, and he's behind Rubio and he's behind Trump. Trump's beating both Florida candidates in the state of Florida right now. Even though he's sort of leveled off or on the decline right now, we'll see if he can. I mean, he's sort of been out of the news for a week, too.
Well, right. And look, Donald Trump's been able to maintain a lead in all of these polls for months. This isn't a flash in the pan. I keep hearing Summer of Trump, and I read these articles that talk about, I mean, it's almost like this wishful thinking that it's just going to
soon,
implode and
yeah.
end. And I'm like, have you not seen him sustain this throughout? And so, at some point, you saw last week with Bush, it's like he woke up and said, oh, this Marco Rubio guy's a problem for me. As he gains traction, I'm losing votes. And so they're finally focused on the battle where their votes are lying, not necessarily the block of votes that Trump's getting. I mean, look, if you peel a voter away from Donald Trump, do you think they're going to Jeb Bush?
No. I can understand why a Democrat would want Hillary Clinton. I can't understand why a Republican would want a third Bush.
The only reason is, and this is why they're successful, is because Republicans, typically a lot of them, will be desperate to win. And so when they put together an establishment campaign with a ton of money, and it all works so long as you're number one in the polls. And so the fact that he's struggling, there's no inevitability argument for them to make, which makes the case so much harder, because I think it was always hard if he was leading every polls, beating Clinton in head-to-head matchups. I think you'd see a lot of Republicans say, well, we need to win the White House.
Well, the desperate to win argument, though, didn't really help Romney. I mean, in a lot of ways, Romney was the worst possible candidate to take on Obama in 2012. But everyone thought, on paper, he looked like the strongest general election candidate, and he turned out to be the worst. And that could be the case with Bush as well.
Although he looks a lot smarter in regard to Russia than when he got all that garbage for saying what he said about Russia being our biggest threat, and now they're pushing us around in Syria. So.
All right, so we'll have to keep an eye and see what happens a little later on today.
That's true.
Eyes on
Should be
Davenport.
interesting.
Thank you, gentlemen.